I mentioned in my last video that my eldest child, who's a junior in college, is minoring in German and wants to go study abroad there. And I got this question, curious what spiked her interest in Germany and the German language. It's because my side of the family is German. We're German American. So thank you for this question. If Ruth is available before I finish filming this, I'll ask her if she wants to come and answer. But I want to say here that I promised my viewers here and on YouTube that I would try to balance the very stressful and depressing American political talk with other content. And I have been failing to do that because everything happening in the US is occurring at such a rapid pace. And I feel that it's hard to prioritize anything else. I have not spent the time out in my garden that I need to spend. I have a huge stack full of sewing projects that I thought I was going to get completed in these short winter days when it's rainy and there's not a lot of garden work I can do. I am behind on so many things in my real life because they all need to be set aside to focus on what is happening in our country. And in order to defend our democracy, we have to be informed and we have to be doing that work, right? But I do want to try to be a little bit better at answering questions that are not political or talking about subjects that people inquire about that are not purely political. So I want to take a second and answer this. And then if Ruth comes down here and she wants to say something, she's welcome to as well, or not. We'll see. So my dad's family is German American. My grandmother, her last name was Beal, and this is my great grandmother's wedding ring. They were, her parents were German butchers. And my father was in the Air Force, and we were stationed in Rhine-Main when I was little. So I lived in Germany until I was about 4. Unfortunately, despite living in Germany when I was little, I don't really speak any German. I can understand some of what people say, and I can read some, but not very much. I have lost most of that, and I regret in many ways my decision in high school to take Latin. I thought that would help me because I wanted to be a biologist, and I thought, oh, Latin will be useful for, nomenclature, et cetera, terminology, and whatever. It hasn't been that helpful. And in college, I took Mandarin. So Mandarin has not served me at all, other than, when everybody was really into Red Note, I could understand some of what was being said. I actually never learned simplified characters, so I can't necessarily read much Mandarin unless it is unsimplified. Even then, I just don't really have a knack for languages. My husband does. He has studied multiple languages at the graduate level, and my daughter appears to have inherited some of that. She's very, very good at foreign languages, and she studied on her own Japanese a little bit, but has always been interested in German, I think primarily because of my side of the family and the fact that not only did my parents' house look like Bavaria exploded, and since I have inherited much of their possessions, now my house looks like Bavaria exploded, which is exactly how I would want it. But also just there's a lot of strong cultural ties from my side of the family to our German heritage. Okay, so Ruth is home now, so I thought I would ask her, sorry to put you on the spot. Do you mind telling people I got asked why it is that you wanted to study German?
Well, we do have some German heritage and family, but mainly it's because I just find German easier than other languages to study, and it's just more fun to learn. It's a more fun language for me.
Okay, so that's interesting to me. It is more, I guess I didn't really know that it's more for you about enjoying studying the language and how it comes more naturally to you than it is even about the familial connection. Does that seem accurate?
Yeah, I would say even if we had no connection to Germany at all, I would probably still be minoring in it.
Cool.
Danke für die Frage. Ich muss jetzt Hausaufgaben machen.
Tschüss. So before we were rapidly descending into fascism in the United States, a significant amount of my content on here was about unschooling, how I've unschooled my kids. Obviously, the 3 eldest are now full-time college students, and I think my 13-year-old next year is going to start at community college when he's 14. So we'll see how that goes. But in unschooling, kids very much drive their own education, and parents are the facilitators of their education. And so my kids have a lot of freedom. I didn't ever dictate to them, like, you have to learn this foreign language or you have to study this particular thing. And so Ruth studied German, off and on a little bit, dabbled in Japanese a little bit, but my second kid, B, no interest at all. She and my third kid took American Sign Language in college, and that was their a foreign language requirement to get their degree. My youngest kid, I don't know. He studies German a little bit on his own, and we'll see what he wants to take when he gets to college. In Oregon, for the state schools, if you want your associate's degree at the community college or you want a bachelor's degree at one of the state schools, there is a foreign language requirement, so they're going to have to study something. So I never pressured my kids to learn German. It's just that to get their bachelor's, they were going to have to study a foreign language. And so I think Ruth clearly was just drawn to it and really has a knack for languages in a way I don't. Had nothing to do with my family being from Battenberg, right? Like that had nothing to do with it. Although I do think it's really interesting how much of the parenting style and kind of cultural style and sense of humor and outlook on the world that I was raised with from my father. There was always this emphasis of like, we're a German family and this is German parenting and we have this particular view of life. And if you know anything about the Schwaben, like it makes a lot of sense if you understand how the kind of temperament and culture and stereotypes of folks from that portion of Germany, you might understand me a little bit better. And I think whatever kind of Schwaben parenting I was raised with was compounded by the fact that my dad was raised by a woman who her mother died when she was 3 days old and she was raised as a boy until puberty. I think all of that really shaped the amount of lack of affection that my father was raised with and the kind of heavy-handed disciplinarian upbringing that he had, and how much of that was exactly what a carbon copy of that was what I was raised with. And I think so much of the work of my parenting has been breaking those cycles and those kind of entrenched behaviors and outlook that has caused so much pain and grief and trauma for myself and my father, and obviously for my grandmother as well. It goes back and back. And I was very much determined that it would stop with me. So there's so many things I'm really proud of about my German heritage, about German culture, the food that I grew up eating, like Schweinhaxe and Sauerbraten, and some of our holiday traditions were profoundly German in nature. I am grateful for all of those things, and I appreciate very much the fact that the house that I grew up in was just full of things that reminded me of my German heritage. So I'm also like 50% British, but I don't really have any cultural or emotional attachment to that side of me because that wasn't what I was raised with. And I know that my kids have seen through their grandparents, through my parents, and through me, a lot of the German traditions, a lot of the German food and cultural aspects have been maintained even 4 generations down. And I know that my children get so much of their identity and their cultural experience and cultural connection through my husband, who is Chickasaw and French and Irish, but they're very, very involved in tribal life and tribal governance and attend, Chickasaw meetings and are interested in studying the language and engaging in art and cultural aspects from their father's side of the family. And for me, preserving some of my Germanness and helping imbue in my children a sense of importance. Although I guess for Ruth, the language is more important than the actual cultural connection and the heritage connection. That's been important to me. And I do think white people in America can really feel adrift and lack a sense of cultural identity. And maybe this is a topic for another time, but a sense of belonging, a sense of ancestry, a sense of being tied back to the people who came before you and the sacrifices they made, and the positive and negative things that get passed down through the generations, all of that I think is really good and important to wrestle with. And maybe I have wrestled with it far more than my children have. Right, like maybe for them it is far more about the fact that mom loves to make Lebkuchen and Pfeffernuss and that it looks like Chris Kindlemark, took over the house at the holidays than anything else. But for me, I do think preserving that part of our identity is important, and I'm really glad that it has interested Ruth as well, and I hope she gets a chance to study abroad. I hope what's happening here and happening in Germany right now does not deprive her of that opportunity. So thanks for your question. Okay, I'm going to take the last few seconds of this video just to show you some of the Germanness of our house.
Ich den General Admission kaufen.
This is my pride and joy. This is my mom's Black Forest cabinet from 1860. I'm so glad to have this. My other daughter's art is down here at the bottom. Not German, but... Okay, I'm kind of out of time. I could take a whole nother video and just show you all the German things in my house, but thanks again for your question.